This is Reading Frederick Douglass Together 25, RFDT hashtag 25. This is a Mass Humanities funded program. What we try to do is to create the opportunity for people to learn as much as they can about Frederick Douglass. We begin with the speech, and then other people, if you want to know more about Frederick Douglass, we create opportunities throughout the Commonwealth to participate in Mass Humanities funded programs. We are going to begin this program with the Operatic singer. Seems like everybody knows her but me. Miss Monica Anderson Spencer. Monica is the director of the Oscar Michael Michelle Family Theater Program, aka the company. Earned her bachelor's degree from Howard University, a historically black college and university. Her next production coming up will be the Miss Marian Anderson and Friends Project, March 15th at the Strand Theater. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Monica Anderson Spencer. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Monica Anderson Spencer.
Yeah. Bravo!
You will have the opportunity to go to the Strand Theater March 15th to see her in the Mrs. Marion Anderson and Friends project. Thank you, Monica. All right, we're going to continue on with the program. I had some unfortunates. We had a couple of people who could not be here because of the weather and health issues. Ms. Gladys Rodriguez Parker will not be here, as well as Mr. Benjamin Swan. Ben Swan is a former state rep out of Hamden. His connection to Worcester is his first wife is from Worcester, and his son Hal. They were going to bring him up. It's a whole story I had for y'all, because he's a guy. He's Springfield, so he drives up and down the Mass Pike. And one day he stopped in Worcester and he met his wife. It's the whole thing. But I wanted to make that connection with the Springfield people and Worcester people, and let you know that the Mass Pike is only a distance. It doesn't really separate us. So we're going to continue on. The next unfortunate is the United States Attorney General's office sent a letter saying that they unfortunately will not be able to be here. They didn't say exactly why they won't be here, but it is something that they said it was unfortunate, and they said at this time. So they are open to having a different conversation with us, so maybe we'll have it in a different space, and we'll have the United States Attorney General's representative come out and talk to the community. And they said they didn't mind me saying that it was unfortunate that they didn't appear today, which is good, because they didn't like just ghost us and just not do anything. All right, so without further ado, we're going to continue on with the program. We have the United States Postal Service here today. Postmaster Chris Downer is here. What we're going to do is do a stamp dedication of the Black History Month stamp. And I am so, like, I'm geeked really, because Chris went out his way for the Postal Service to get this stamp, and I'm thankful that they extended this opportunity for us to give this opportunity to the community members. All right, so I gotta put my glasses down. All right, Yvonne Brown is going to be our recipient today. Yvonne Brown is administrator for the New England Area Conference. Miss Yvonne came to Worcester to help reactivate the Worcester branch of the NAACP. She was the president of the South Middlesex branch NAACP, among other things. She is a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Without further ado, we would like to have Miss Yvonne Brown come up. And Mr. Postmaster Chris Downing.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Really excited that Cedric invited us. Along with me is Michelle Gallagher, who's the manager of customer service of the Worcester Post Office. If you'll permit me, I have a few words I want to say about John Lewis. And I have to say, putting this together really inspired me to learn a lot about John Lewis. And he has an autobiography, Walking with the Wind, which I am going to go get today, and I'm going to read it. So it's kind of a great thing that happened to me just putting this together. But John Lewis was a key figure in some of the most pivotal moments of the civil rights movement. John Lewis was the face of the National Student Movement, chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, an original freedom rider. Even in the face of hatred and violence, Lewis remained resolute in his commitment to what he liked to call good trouble. Devoted to equality and justice for all Americans, Lewis spent more than 30 years in the United States House of Representatives, steadfastly defending and building on key civil rights gains that he helped achieve in the 1960s. He was a staunch and unwavering believer in and an advocate for nonviolent protests, a recipient of more than 50 honorary degrees. He was called a saint by Time magazine and the conscience of Congress by his colleagues. He served as an executive director of the Voter Education Project, an associate director of Action, the federal volunteer agency that oversaw the Peace Corps and volunteers in service to America and a member of the Atlanta City Council. He was also the author of several best-selling books, including The March, a comic book series, and the inspiring autobiography, Walking with the Wind. Elected to represent Georgia in the United States House of Representatives in 1986, Lewis garnered the support needed to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1991, sponsored legislation that created the 54-mile Selma to Montgomery National Historic Trail, and worked for more than a decade to establish the National Museum of African American History and Culture on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, by President Barack Obama. They would stand here. Do that, not me.
Oh, wow.
We have a beautiful piece of framed art, which is going to go to Yvonne Brown. Congratulations.
Again, another round of applause for Miss Yvonne Brown. And we want to thank the United States Postal Service, Chris Downer, to be a part of this as the postmaster of the Worcester branch. All right, we're going to continue on. We have our city manager of the city of Worcester, Mr. Eric Baptista. Can you please come up and introduce the reading for our lovely community?
Thank you, Cedric. Wow, I'm just humbled and extremely humbled and privileged to even stand beside that individual, that man, that powerhouse, because of what he did, not only to the state, but across the nation. And also even to kick off the reading here of Frederick Douglass, a national leader, not only here in the state of Massachusetts as well, but also across the nation. Someone who was not afraid to speak up, to stand up in the fight, but also to build coalition. And that's something that I'm very fortunate to be a part of, to actually take a step in that direction and play that role, a small role here in the city of Worcester, the second largest city in New England. For me, it's something that it speaks to home because as a person of color and also a family who have a long lineage in the island of Puerto Rico, where I was born and raised, in terms of being enslaved and being in that kind of oppression, for me it is important to be here. And it brings me great pride to stand here before you as a city manager and to have the opportunity to also speak and introduce the first kind of segment of this reading, because it speaks, it happened back in 1852. But the words that are spoken here still live on today, which is wild. And we're 2025. And so I'm going to take the opportunity here to kick us off and introduce the first reading of a powerful writing here. So it says this. It says, Mr. President, friends and fellow citizens, the task before me is one which requires much previous thought and study for its proper performance. I do not remember ever to have appeared as a speaker before any assembly more stricken, nor with greater distrust of my ability than I do this day. The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th of July oration. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between this platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable. And the difficulties to be overcome is getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today is, to me, a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude. Thank you.
Those that participate in the reading, you could just line up right here and just continue on with the next stanza. The next stanza is number 2, so you can just step to that microphone and continue to read. Don't push anybody out the way getting up here.
Is it a sign already?
No, you can just go up and read. Just go next. Whichever is, if it goes 1, the next one is 2. If it's 2, the next one is 3. There you go. There you go. Yep, we have speeches on the table. We have people that are getting out if you don't have one.
This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom. This, to you, is what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to the day and to the act of your great deliverance. This celebration also marks the beginning of another year of your national life and reminds you that the Republic of America is now 76 years old. I am glad, fellow citizens, that your nation is so young. You are, even now, only in the beginning of your national career, still lingering in the period of childhood. I repeat, I am glad this is so. There is hope in the thought, and hope is much needed under the dark clouds which lower above the horizon.
I wanted to jump at the opportunity to read the 3rd line because it seems like they cut out the most important part. Sorry, give me 1 second. I am glad, fellow citizens, that your nation is so young. 76 years, though, a good old age for a man, is but a mere speck in the life of a nation. 70 years and 10 is the allotted time for individual men, but nations number their years by thousands. According to this fact, you are even now only in the beginning of your national career, still lingering in a period of childhood. I repeat, I am glad that this is so. There is hope in the thought, and much hope is needed under the dark clouds which lower above the horizon. The eye of the reformer is met with angry flashes portending disastrous times, but his heart may well be lighter at the thought that America is young, and that she is still in the impressible stage of her existence. 200 years later, I'm not sure if that's still true. May he not hope that the high lessons of wisdom, of justice, and of truth will yet give direction to her destiny. Were the nation older, as it is now, were the nation older, as it is now, the patriot's heart might be sadder, and the reformer's brow heavier. His future might be shrouded in gloom, and the hope of his prophets go out in sorrow. There is consolation in the thought that America is still young. It's not young anymore. Great streams are not easily turned from channels worn deep in the course of ages, as they are now. They may sometimes rise in quiet and stately majesty and inundate the land, refreshing and fertilizing the earth with their mysterious properties. They may also arise in wrath and fury and bear away in their angry waves the accumulated wealth of years of toil and hardship. As with rivers, so with nations. Please forgive me, I had to make that introduction.
But your fathers, who had not adopted the idea of the infallibility of government and the absolute character of its act, presume to differ from the home government in respect to the wisdom and justice of some of those burdens and restraints. They went so far as to pronounce the measures of government unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive. and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. I scarcely need say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers, feeling themselves harshly and unjustly treated by the home government. Your fathers, like men of honesty and men of spirit, earnestly sought redress. They petitioned and remonstrated. They did so in a decorous, respectful, and loyal manner. This, however, did not answer the purpose. They saw themselves treated with sovereign indifference, coldness, and scorn, yet they persevered.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers have become restrictive under this treatment. They felt themselves the victim of grievous wrongs, wholly incurable in their colonial capacity. With brave men, there is always a remedy for oppression. Just here, the idea of a total separation of the colonies from the crown was born. It was a startling idea, much more so than we, at this distance of time, regarded. The timid and the prudent of that day were, of course, shocked and alarmed by it. Their opposition to the then dangerous thought was earnest and powerful. But amid all their terror and affrighted vociferations against it, the alarming and revolutionary idea moved on, and the country with it.
On the 2nd of July, 1776, the old Continental Congress, to the dismay of the lovers of ease and the worshippers of property, clothed that dreadful idea with all the authority of national sanction. They did so in the form of a resolution. We seldom hit upon resolutions drawn up in our day whose transparency is at all equal. It resolved that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown.
Citizens, your fathers made good that resolution. They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained in yours, and you therefore may properly celebrate this anniversary. The 4th of July is the first great fact in your nation's history. The very ring bolt in the chain of your yet undeveloped destiny.
Pride and patriotism, not less than gratitude, prompt you to celebrate and to hold it in perpetuity. Perpetuity. Remembrance. I have said that the Declaration of Independence is a ring bolt to the claim of your nation's destiny. So indeed, I regard it. The principles contained in that instrument are saving principles. Stand by those principles and be true to them in all occasions, in all places, against all foes, and at whatever cost.
Fellow citizens, I am now waiting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. I cannot complete their great deeds with less than admiration.
They were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and for the good that they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor them.
They love their country better than their own private interest, and all will concede that it is a rare virtue that ought to command respect. He who will intelligently lay down his life for his country is a man whom it is not in human nature to despise. Your fathers staked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the cause of their country. In the admiration of liberty, they lost sight of all other interests.
They were peacemen, but they preferred revolution to peaceful submission to bondage. They were quiet men, but they did not shrink from agitating against oppression. They showed forbearance, but they knew its limits. They believed in order, but not in the order of tyranny. With them, nothing was settled, quote, that was not right. With them, justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. You may well cherish the memory of such men. They were great in their day and generation. Their solid manhood stands out the more as we contrast it with these degenerate times.
How circumspect, exact, and proportionate were all their movements. How unlike the politicians of an hour. Their statesmanship looked beyond the passing moment and stretched away in strength into the distant future. Mark them, fully appreciating the hardship to be encountered, firmly believing in the right of their cause, wisely measuring the terrible odds against them. Your fathers, the fathers of this republic, laid the cornerstone of the national superstructure, which has risen and still rises in grandeur around you.
Of this fundamental work, this day is the anniversary. Our eyes are met with the demonstrations of joyous enthusiasm. The causes which led to the separation of the colonies from the British Crown have never lacked for a tongue. They have all been taught in your common schools, narrated at your firesides, unfolded from your pulpits, and thundered from your legislative halls, and are as familiar to you as household words. They form the staple of your national poetry and eloquence. I leave, therefore, the great deeds of your fathers to others.
My business, if I have any here today, is with the present, accepted time with God and His cause in the ever-living now. We have to do with the past as only we can make it useful to the present and to the future. Now is the time, the important time. Your fathers have lived, died, and done their work, and have done much of it well. You live and must die, and you must do your work. You have no right to enjoy a child's share in the labor of your fathers, unless your children are blessed by your labors. You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned frame of your fathers to cover your invalids.
Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I allowed upon to speak here today? Where have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Our great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offerings to the national altar and the congressions, the benefits, and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us?
Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer to be truthfully returned to their questions, to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us.
The blessings in which you, this day, rejoice and are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in feathers into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and scandalous irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today?
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shout that reached them. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. Okay, what's this one? My subjects, then fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day from the slave's point of view. Standing here, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future.
Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce, with all emphasis that I command, everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command. And yet, not one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is not at heart a slaveholder, shall not confess to be right and just.
Fancy, I hear some of my audience say, it is just in this circumstance that you and your brother abolitionists fail to make a favorable impression upon the public mind. Would you argue more and denounce less? Would you persuade more and rebuke less? Your case would be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there is nothing to be argued. What point in the anti-slavery creed would you have me argue? On what branch of the subject do the people of this country need light?
Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being?
Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding, under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or write. When you can point to any such laws in reference to the beasts of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls in the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea, and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from the brute, then will I argue with you that the slave is a man.
Is it not astonishing that while we are plotting, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metal, brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to others, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men.
Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans to show that men have a natural right to freedom? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him.
designed to argue that this is wrong, to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant, and to their relations, to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters. Must I agree that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employments for my time and strength than such arguments will imply.
What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctrines of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? I cannot. The time for such argument is past.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impotence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnness, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages.
There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and despotism, I don't know how to say that word, of the world. Search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without rival.
Take the American slave trade, which we are told by the papers is especially prosperous just now, as the price of men were never higher, and which is carried on in all the large towns and cities and one half of this confederacy. This trade is one of the peculiarities of American institutions. In several states, this trade is a chief source of wealth. It is called the internal slave trade, in order to divert it from the horrors with which the foreign slave trade is contemplated. Okay. The foreign slave trade has long since been denounced by this government as piracy, as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, this nation keeps a squadron at immense cost on the coast of Africa. Everywhere in this country, it is safe to speak of this foreign slave trade as a most inhumane traffic, opposed alike to the laws of God and of man. It is, however, a notable fact that while so much excursion is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in the foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable.
Behold the practical operation of this internal slave drive, the American slave drive, sustained by American politics and American religion. Here, you will see men and women reared like swine for the market. You know what is a swine drover? I will show you a man drover. They inhabit all of our 7 states. They perambulate the country and crowd the highways of the nation with droves of human stock. You will see one of these human flesh drovers armed with pistol, whip, and bow tie, knife, like driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac to the slave market in New Orleans. These wretched people are to be sold singly or in lots to suit purchasers. They are food for the cotton field and the deadly sugar mill.
Mark the sad procession as it moves wearily along, and the inhuman wretch who drives them. Hear his savage yells and his blood-chilling oaths as he hurries on his affrighted captives. There, see the old man with locks thinned and gray. Cast one glance, if you please, upon that young mother, whose shoulders are bare to the scorching sun, her briny tears falling on the brow of the babe in her arms. See, too, that girl of 13 weeping, yes, weeping as she thinks of the mother from whom she has been torn. The drove moves tardily. Heat and sorrow have nearly consumed their strength. Suddenly, you hear a quick snap, like the discharge of a rifle. The fetters clank and the chain rattles simultaneously. Your ears are saluted with a scream that seems to have torn its way to the center of your soul. The crack you heard was the sound of the slave whip. The scream you heard was from the woman you saw with the babe. Her speed had faltered under the weight of her child and her chains. That gash on her shoulders tells her to move on.
Follow this drove to New Orleans. Attend the auction. See men examined like horses. See the forms of women brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. See this drove sold and separated forever. And never forget the deep, sad sobs that arose from that scattered multitude. Tell me, citizens, where under the sun you can witness a spectacle more fiendish and shocking. Yet this is but a glance at the American slave trade as it exists at this moment in the ruling part of the United States.
I was born amid such sights and scenes. To me, the American slave trade is a terrible reality. The fleshmongers gather up their victims by dozens and drive them chained to the General Depot at Baltimore. When a sufficient number has been collected here, a ship is chartered for the purpose of conveying the forlorn crew to Mobile or to New Orleans. From the slave prison to the ship, they are usually driven in the darkness of night, in the deep, still darkness of midnight. I have been often aroused by the dead, heavy footsteps, and the piteous cries of the chain gangs that pass our door.
Fellow citizens, this murderous traffic is today in active operation in this boasted republic. In the solitude of my spirit, I see the clouds of dust raised on the highways of the South. I see the bleeding footsteps. I hear the doleful wail of fettered humanity on the way to the slave markets, where the victims are to be sold like horses, sheep, and swine, knocked off to the highest bidder. There I see the tenderest ties ruthlessly broken to gratify the lust, caprice, and rapacity of the buyers and sellers of men. My soul sickens at the sight.
But a still more inhumane, disgraceful, and scandalous state of things remains to be presented. By an act of the American Congress not yet 2 years old, slavery has been nationalized in its most horrible and revolting form. Masons and Dixon's line has been obliterated. New York has become as Virginia, and the power to hold and sell men, women, and children as slaves remains no longer a mere state of institution, but now an institution of the whole United States.
The power is coextensive with the Star-Spangled Banner and American Christianity. Where these go may also go the merciless slave hunter. Where these are, man is not sacred. He is a bird for the sportsman's gun. By that most foul and fiendish of all human decrees, the liberty and persons of every man are put in peril. Your broad Republican domain is hunting ground for men.
Your lawmakers have commanded all good citizens to engage in this hellish sport. Your president, your Secretary of State enforce as a duty you owe to your free and glorious country and to your God that you do this accursed thing. Not fewer than 40 Americans have, within the past 2 years, been hunted down and, without a moment's warning, hurried away in chains and consigned to slavery and excruciating torture. Some of these have had wives and children dependent on them for bread, but of this no account was made. The right of the hunter to prey stands superior to the right to marriage and to all rights in this republic, the rights of God included.
For black men, there is neither law nor justice, humanity nor religion. The fugitive slave law makes mercy to them a crime and bribes the judge who tries them An American judge gets $10 for every victim he consigns to slavery, and 5 when he fails to do so. The oath of every villain is sufficient, of any villain is sufficient, under this hell-black enactment, to send the most pious and exemplary black man into the remorseless jaws of slavery. His own testimony is nothing. He can bring no witnesses for himself. The minister of American justice is bound by the law to hear but one side, and that side is the side of the oppressor.
Let this damning fact be perpetually told. Let it be thundered around the world that in tyrant-killing, king-hating, people-loving, democratic Christian America, the seats of justice are filled with judges who hold their offices under an open and palpable bribe and are bound in deciding in the case of a man's liberty to hear only his accusers.
In glaring violation of justice, in shameless disregard of the forms of administrating law, in cunning arrangements to entrap the defenseless, and in diabolical intent, the fugitive slave law stands alone in the annals of tyrannical legislation.
Americans, your Republican politics, not less than your Republican religion, are flagrantly inconsistent. You boast of your love of liberty, your superior civilization, and your pure Christianity, while the whole political power of the nation is solemnly pledged to support and perpetuate the enslavement of 3 million of your countrymen. You hurl your anathemas at the crown-headed tyrants of Russia and Austria, and pride yourself on your democratic institutions, while you yourself consent to be the mere tools and bodyguards of the tyrants of Virginia and Carolina.
You invite to your shores fugitives of oppression from abroad. Honor them with banquets, greet them with ovations, cheer them, toast them, salute them, protect them, and pour out your money to them like water. But the fugitives from your own land you advertise, hunt, arrest, shoot, and kill. You glory in your refinement and your universal education. Yet you maintain a system as barbarous and dreadful as ever stained the character of a nation, a system begun in avarice, supported in pride, and perpetuated in cruelty.
You shed tears over fallen Hungary and make the sad story of her wrongs the theme of your poets, statesmen, and orators till your gallant sons are ready to fly with arms to vindicate her cause against the oppressor. But in regard to the 10,000 wrongs of the American slave, you would enforce the strictest silence and would hail him as an enemy of the nation who dares to make these wrongs the subject of public discourse. You are all on fire at the mention of liberty for France or for Ireland, but as cold as the iceberg at the thought of liberty for the enslaved of America.
You discourse eloquently on the dignity of labor, Yet you sustain a system which, in its very essence, casts a stigma upon labor. You can bare your bosom to the storm of British artillery or to throw off a 3-penny tax on tea, and yet writing the last hard-earned farthing from the grasp of the black laborers of your country. You profess to believe that of one blood, God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of all the earth, and hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another. Yet you notoriously hate, and glory in your hatred all men whose skins are not colored like your own.
You declare before the world and are understood by the world to declare that you hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yet, you hold securely in a bondage which, according to your own Thomas Jefferson, is worse than the ages that your fathers rose in rebellion to oppose, a seventh part of the inhabitants of your country.
Fellow citizens, I will not enlarge further on your national insolence. The existence of slavery in this country brands our republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base precedent, and your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing, and by word to mocking earth.
It is the antagonistic force in your government, the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union. It fetters your progress. It is the enemy of improvement, the deadly foe of education. It fosters pride, it breeds insolence, it promotes vice, it shelters crime. It is a curse to the earth that supports it, and yet you cling to it as if it were the sheet anchor of all your hopes. Be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and fling from your hideous monster, and let the weight of the 20 millions crush and destroy it forever.
But it is answered in reply to all this, that precisely what I have denounced is in fact guaranteed and sanctioned by the Constitution of the United States. That the right to hold and to hunt slaves is a part of the Constitution framed by the illustrious founders of this republic. Then I dare to affirm, notwithstanding all I have said before, your fathers, instead of being honest men, I have before declared them to be, were the various impostors that ever practiced on mankind. This is the inevitable conclusion, and from it, there is no escape.
But I differ from those who charge this business on the framers of the Constitution of the United States. It is slandered upon their memory, at least, so I believe. And others have, as I think, fully and clearly vindicated the Constitution from any design to support slavery for an hour. Allow me to say, in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. I therefore leave off where I began with hope, while drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions. My spirit is cheered by the obvious tendencies of the age. Nations do not now stand in the same relation to each other that they did ages ago. No nation can now shut itself up from the surrounding world and trot round in the same old path with its fathers without interference.
The time was when such could be done, but a change has now come over the affairs of mankind. Walled cities and empires have become unfashionable. The arm of commerce has borne away the gates of the strong city. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. Wind, steam, and lightnings are its chartered agents. Oceans no longer divide, but link nations together. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Space is comparatively annihilated. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic are distinctly heard on the other. In the fervent aspirations of William Lloyd Garrison, I say, and let every heart join in saying it,
All God's speed, the day when human blood shall cease to flow, and every crime be understood, the claims of human brotherhood, and each return for evil good, not blow for blow. That day will come, all feuds to end, and change into a faithful friend, each foe. Thank you, guys. This is a Mass Humanities funded project. Don't go nowhere. We still have one more song from our illustrious performer of the day, Miss Monica Anderson Spencer. So just hold on tight real quick, and she is going to come and bless us with one more song. So without further ado, Miss Monica Anderson Spencer.
Through
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Monica Anderson Spencer. And you can see her perform again March 15th at the Strand Theater in Boston with the Miss Marian Anderson and Friends project that she will be performing. So you get a chance to see her again. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for coming out and being a part of this. This is a wonderful event. I'm glad you guys keep coming out to them. Big up to Mass Humanities, RFPT #25.